Thing is, I actually had this epiphany on a podcast earlier this year where I actually realized, obviously, if you're a fan of Simple, you wanted him to get the help, you wanted him to win I actually realized, though, shit, it's actually going to be worse, though, because you're not going to get those performances. Like, funnily enough, he used to have a year ago online against Vitality when he was with the worst team and he didn't have bit, where you knew he had to drop 45 kills just to, like, win an overtime game. So in a fucked up way, it's like, be careful what you wish for, because listen, I get why Simple wants all that help, but it's actually not as good, because it actually reminds me of when Nico got in the really good FaZe clan. It's like, he could actually now win a game where he had like 15 kills and just had an all right game. Like, it's if you're just a really greedy fan, it's actually not as good. I will say though, I doubt Simple would trade back for that. I think he actually likes it like this, believe it or not, guys, where he can just play like a human and still win the game. And then we'll do the segue you just set up there, by the way. Right, this happened at the major. At the major, what happened was we spent so much time talking about Simple because he's supposed to win the major. Navi supposed as a team supposed to win the major. Then we had like 15 minutes soliloquy about fucking Bit every single desk segment, and then I was even trying to counter it like, eventually he's going to drop off, guys. Like, almost never did, spoiler, but okay. Apparently that's just not, apparently we are just in the twilight zone of Navi. But here's the saddest thing of all, Blair, is the guy who kept getting left out of desk segments while having, just like this tournament, top 5 stats in the entire tournament was electronic. Because what would happen is, minus the final, you spent so much time going through the other names, or just talking about the others for their story, you know, that like this guy, because he's one of the older players, he's all got left out. In this tournament as well, he is the 4th highest rated player. And as well, let's just throw this in there. This guy is a fucking entry player. Like, this is not a guy who's fucking, it's like Config earlier. The whole reason why I was amazed Config wasn't in like the MVP voting is, man, I don't care if they have the same numbers. The impact is mental. If you're someone like Config, you're literally winning a game when you get those kills. So Blair, Maui State, what do you think of the electronic factor? Because this is another guy who, he almost was just fucking chilling online. When he goes to LAN, he's just a different animal.
I feel like it comes down to just us not having enough time on the test to talk about, right? When you talk about Navi, you're like, all right, Perfecto, he can clutch. Simple is well. He's Simple. They have this new kid on the block. Best debut year ever for a Counter-Strike player. And then you're talking about Boomich and his calling. And you're like, oh yeah, this electronic. He's also really, really good, right? But yeah, I think he does. He doesn't really get his praises sung quite as often, because it's not because he gets, it's not because he's not doing a good job. It's just that we have already told his story, right? He has been around for a while. We've already sang his praises when he was such a good, a right-hand man to Simple a couple of years back as well. Sure, he dropped off a little bit, but then you have all these really cool storylines of Boomich starting to call fantastically. You have this Bit kid coming onto the block, and then you have Perfecto being so very clutch. So it kind of overshadows him a little bit. But yeah, 100% Electronic has been one of the unsung heroes of Navi. You have to say it.
Yeah, the only thing I don't know if Electronic is good at is being a father. That's the one angle I have.
What? What?
That guy is all over.
Explain yourself, Maui. Explain yourself.
And especially in a team with Boomich, just like, listen, just the TMZ angle to that team alone could be amazing, couldn't it? That's a good line. That's a pretty good line. I'll give you that. One.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, what was so impressive about Electronic in the last couple of years was that he was such a great space taker for Navi. And now he just doesn't have to be. Like, he's still an entry, like you said, Thorin. It's just that, like, Boomich likes to take space, Bit likes to take space. We already know that. Like, Simple is going to get his own when he wants to, you know. So that's like, so everything kind of just downplays how effective Electronic still is in his role. Like, he's like single-handedly responsible for taking banana sometimes for Navi, and he just can beat the best banana defenses in the world consistently. Like, it doesn't even matter if he has support utility. He just can, like, weave around the nades like Neo in the Matrix, and that's just like a skill that nobody else can really match on the planet. And yet, like, yeah, we still don't even mention him all the time. And he's so, like, the thing that's so crazy about Navi right now is that, like, there are 4 people who want to fight and take space. Whereas, like, you know, you get a couple teams out there and you have like until a config joins a roster sometimes, you know, like, who is really fighting for map control?
Think of the old complexity where they had Blamef, JKS, and Goldzyra at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, you have no one that's going to fight. So then, like, Poison has to be an entry. Exactly. And it's like, he just doesn't even match up to other entries for rifle to rifle. So so like the thing with Navi is that's what enables their T sides to be just so constantly active, and teams are always like thinking the main hit is coming from here, but oh wait, no, a bit and Boomich are now flying me on this other side of the map. Like it's just so unwieldy. Like you can't communicate. Like the way that teams are communicating against Astralis is very different than how they're going to have to communicate against Navi.
And just to add on to that, like honestly, watching some of the T sides and the amount of moving parts they have, right, for the side of Navi, it almost feels like Blade is calling for them live in the server. It reminds me of when coaches used to call back in the day when I think it was Starix calling for Navi, right? So the fact that they're able to do this without, with Boomich in the server, where, as an IGL, sure, you have complete reign over the team, but also you don't have complete awareness about all the moving parts. So just the comms and also the protocols, it's just insane. It's just insane how good its T-side is from Navi. Almost unprecedented, I might say.
Yeah, one of the things I think's also made the team just OP as fuck right now is when we think of the old teams that had Simple and Electronic, the joke is they were two hard carries. Like they both had to just frag out and basically sort of be as selfish as you can, because if they don't get the frags, Edward and Zeus aren't going to get those kills. Like they literally can't get those kills. And obviously Flamey was always just an up and down player, and sadly mainly down when you hoped he'd be up. So I even think the craziest thing, this is why I think Navi is too OP right now, is you took two guys who were used to having to do it all, and they can actually genuinely trust their teammates. Like if you're Electronic now, you don't have to just like entry and get the first two kills with an AK against like a specific player. You can actually just play normal entry sometimes. You can just run in there, you can flash yourself in, just go in, take the fight. If you get it, by the way, you're going to win anyway. But if you don't, you've got people coming behind you, get the kills. Like you can also now play like normal Counter-Strike. Like they're getting to actually play real team Counter-Strike for once. And then I think the thing that's made this team just unfair, people get the bit side of it, but it's like you got bit and Perfecto. Like that's unfair. Like you already had two amazing, incredible LAN players in Electronic and Simple. You got bit like the rookie of the year, like we say, like amazing player, even got actually underrated game sense, aim is fucking mental, everyone knows. And then Perfecto just doesn't die and wins clutches all day long. Like at this point in time, I can give all the sort of slander I like towards Boomich and Izzy and IGL. It doesn't matter, mate. Think of those four players. Like that is unironically one of the best like four-man lineups in terms of like the role, like lack of overlap, that they all have a distinct role they're really good at, and they cover all the things you'd want in a team. Like the checklist is crazy. The only thing you don't have in Navi is the truly great IGL, and then as you're alluding to there, when you've got Blade, you've almost got like the spiritual fucking essence of a truly great IGL, and you're just using a different guy who actually, funnily enough, it plays sort of entry himself. So like the team has too many weapons, like stylistically even, not even just player wise.
Yeah, and Maui, go on.
I was just saying, if you put like any of the players on Navi, like I'm looking at their opening attempt rates and stuff right now for this tournament, and like I mean, Electronic does fight for map control. He does entry a lot. He's not even at 20% for opening attempt kills. Like it's just like they all can just work within, and yet like there's without a shred of doubt, he is like an entry player. Like it's not even. It's just that they all are so willing to do it. Like I think that's something key for me with this team, is that with the exception of Perfecto, everyone is willing to be the guy that is frequently said to have the worst role, which is the first in guy. Yes. Like everybody, like that's something that I think when Prime Liquid during their Grand Slam run was really on peak form, is like kind of like anybody could just run in and they were all confident enough that they could do it. And I think that's what we're getting from Navi right now. And the tactical side of things is, I would say it's quite good, but it's obviously predicated on the fact that everybody right now is just like, nobody is getting stopped. Like there's nobody that seems that they can match them, and because of that, like nobody is ever afraid. Whereas other teams always have like, oh, like this is kind of discombobulated because like we didn't hit a timing because someone was a little too slow.
And also, just to add on to them, I'm looking at the stats for the T side. One thing which has been a trend thus far in this particular event, and generally in CS recently since the A1 change, has been, T sides have been struggling for a lot of these teams, right? I'm looking at Navi, man, and this is ridiculous. Like, firstly, they have the highest, they're only team in the green, at least on HLTV, based on the win rates on the T side. Looking at their 5v4 conversion, it is ludicrous. 82% of the time, when the 5 versus 4, they convert the round. The second highest thus far in this event is Vitality at FaZe at 67%.
Ooh,
that's how far above that. It's ridiculous. And even the trade percentage, like they're trading 25% of the time. And just to, I think it emphasizes what you mentioned there, Duncan. When it comes to trading, you have like Electronic going in. Sure, he might die, but immediately right behind him, you have someone like Bit or Simple with the AWP just immediately trading. And the fact that the T side is so very strong in an era where, you know, the CD sides are so much more dominant for all these teams, it just boggles the mind. It makes no sense. They're literally breaking the meta.
Well, I always bring up this example, right? Because obviously Nuke's going to be played. That one of the reasons I was so impressed by last year when we were online, where Simple started pioneering this style where he just goes wherever he wants on CT. And famously, obviously, he just instantly goes down those vents and goes to take the secret position if he knows they're coming, which is why there's a million highlights of Simple just at every position on the fucking map. The reason why I thought that was so exceptional before was because basically he's the first star player I've ever seen who was able to counter the idea that if they know you have one mega carry, they used to do this to Nico all the time in mouse spots. You just go to the other side as soon as you scout him out. As soon as he actually does get the guy where you're trying to trade, you go, right, pull back, go and take the fight with the two bad players. You know, we'll take our chances with them. Not only does that not work on Nuke because of Simple's movement, but as a team, that also does not exist anymore. Like, I made this tweet that people might have found a bit vague if they don't know the history of the game. This is why, for me, it always was unfair to contrast like Nico and Simple and beating Ziwu now when they're the super hard carry with like the best player but on the best team. So Device on Astralis, Coldzera on SK. The reason why it's unfair is you can't fucking avoid those guys. Like, I can't go, I'm just going to avoid Coldzera all this game. Well, good luck getting your head smashed off by Fur and Fallen then. Like, there isn't like an option to do that. Like, Simple's now in the fucking dream zone where that's his world as well. Like, you could have a whole game where Simple could barely interact with you, you still get dominated. So, like, I even see it in their faces, dude. Like, they don't ever look like they ever get truly in that moment where it's like, oh, we can't win this game, or we're out of it completely, or we're mentally broken. Like, it's the reason why I think they did that epic comeback in the final of the major. Like, they have so many insane players and Simple. Like, of course you'd be almost having fun playing the game there. You would believe any comeback is possible.
It's tough to even imagine a lead that's safe against Navi when no matter who is alive. Like, that's another one of those things we mentioned, that basically when anybody's alive too, they can break down situations. Like,
yes.
Like Perfecto's role as like the late round player has shown to be like I don't know how they develop so fast. Like, it's so crazy. Like, Perfecto, like in late rounds on CT side, always has that one piece of utility left that he just was gonna place perfectly. If it's like a right click flash or a smoke to just like block the choke point, it's like, how is he so bold to not just dump his nades earlier? Like, I'm really shocked by that. Or like, how is he smart? It's like smarts and being like strong at his position. You know, he's just so confident that like he can hold it for when the opponents are desperate, and finally he's like, okay, you waited way too long and I still have this one trick up my sleeve. And really, like, even man, it hurts to even say this from what we were saying about this guy a year ago, but even Boomich can win rounds sometimes. Like, sure. And it's just like, oh man, like even he got so much better too. And like now it's like, oh man, we used to be able to count on some like weak points and like some Achilles heel. The Achilles heel of Navi before was like Boomich being a moron, and now it's like, oh god, he's like actually making the right play a lot. Like,
dude, I'll even give you an example. Like, obviously the most famous, like, I would call them, if you're going to take like MOBA terminology, like ints, like just stupid deaths from Boomich. Yeah. One of them would be on Inferno, where he would just 24/7 peek that fucking wall like this, right, with MP9. Yeah. Now, the two times he would do that in a game and get the kills, you'd go, what a genius. Like, just wait. He's going to do that a lot more, and then he would obviously just get killed and there'd be 4v5. The joke now is, like, Bits also aggro on the map, on a different part of the fucking map on CT side, so you're already being pushed and pulled at a pressure game. And the crucial thing when you have as good players as they have now is you can rotate them out. Like, that might actually be Boomich now, and then the next time you bumush the banana, and actually Simple might just be waiting there at the beginning of the round. Like, they've actually, it's like what I think's genius about Boomich, this is why I don't believe he's a true IGL, is it's almost like they realised he couldn't fit IGL, and also he didn't have like a normal role in Counter-Strike. And it's like almost a less like ridiculous version of the Sanji story. It's like they just asked, what can he actually do though? Like, what can he do for our team that would somehow, like, that fits in with what he wants to do? So in this case, it's like move constantly and do all these weird peaks and use SMGs for some reason. And somehow they've managed a way to sort of slot that into what everyone else is doing. Like, it actually does work well. I'll even say as well, like, the Perfecto one is the most ridiculous one, because like I say, listen, someone being a rookie but having an amazing aim like Bit, that can happen. It's happened before, of course. The idea you like, it's still like a semi-rookie essentially, like Perfecto is. He realistically playing his second year this year. It is like fucking Blade is like Morpheus taking these motherfuckers out and like downloading, I now know how to clutch. Like, all right, cool, he's got all clutch. He's just downloaded every clutch in CSGO history in his brain. He can just do it now. Like, what? That's supposed to take fucking like half a decade to get as good as he is now. That's not supposed to come like that's like clutches sold separately ultimately. Like, that's the fucking luxury package. They just have that as well with all the fragging. It's unfair.
The thing with Perfecto is like you look, if you just look at the stats, right? If you're new to Counter-Strike, you're watching this Navi team, you're looking at at the entire team. You see Simple and Bitway on top, Electronic third, Boomich and Perfecto kind of close to each other, and you're like, okay, Boomich is the IGL. That's why he doesn't have great ratings. The thing is, if you actually take Perfecto and put him on any other team, the problem with playing with Navi is you don't really have too many opportunities to clutch, because they're just going to win majority of the rounds convincingly, right? But if you actually put in a team where, they're always at a disadvantage, you kind of lose the opening duels, it's like a 2v4, 3v4 scenario, he's actually going to have crazy stats. I feel like he would be, a top 2 player in any other average, CIS team for that matter, right? Slot him into a team like, let's say, maybe a Gambit, for example. Let him be the late round player. I think he could potentially be a star right there. And the fact that someone that good is still, he's still down there when it comes to pure stats for a team like Navi, just goes to show, like you said, the amount of sheer firepower this team possesses.
By the way, the stat that they just showed on screen on the broadcast says Navi have made the final in 7 consecutive tournaments. Like, what's so mental is, like, this is how ridiculous, because I always say this, right? The angle where people make a mistake, it's because it's just human nature, is when someone wins loads, right, and the other one doesn't. So at the beginning of the year, if we were at like the midpoint of the year, I'm guessing off the top of my head, Gambit would have had like 5 titles and Navi would have had like, 2 or 1 or something. And it was something like that around that time. At the time, it feels like, well, that's over. Like, Gambit's the team of the year. No, because here's the thing. It's binary. You can only win or lose the event. If you actually start being the team that wins, you not only add to your count, but they can't add to their count, can they? So the crazy thing is, it's already over, isn't it? Like, Navi is the team of the year, even though Gambit, like, seemed to have it in a complete, like, ironclad grip. Like, you would have thought there's no way they come out of it. Although I'll also throw in, you've got to also, if you're the Gambit team, come like second every time after that, like at least Navi was doing to you. So, like, they are just the team of the year. Here's the question I have, right? Is we're obviously almost projecting like they've won this and then we're looking to the future and stuff, right? Maui made an interesting point earlier, which is, unfortunately, because it's so sexy, the idea that you get on top and then you keep working hard because you're the best team and you want to have an era and stuff. I also feel like what makes it really tough to win events back to back to back to back and to have an era is, like he was saying there, like, first of all, not only does everyone start prepping for you, and they use all the experience of the times they lose against you to sort of like level up and figure out where their weaknesses are, but also over time, you have to keep evolving the game as well. What I always said was amazing to me about the Real Astralis lineup was, realistically, to a fan, it looks like they just got on top and just stayed there. By the way, spoiler, the stayed there part is the genius of what they did. Because I guarantee you they were updating their playbook every month, and you saw they were even changing how they played maps. They would actually win tournaments and come with new setups on Nuke and Inferno. You'd be like, what? Where did this come from? But that's how you have to actually stay on top. So obviously, getting to the top isn't just being the best team. You've got to have other factors that go along with it. So do you actually think, going forward, Splair, does Navi actually continue this streak? Do they just stay the dominant force for the foreseeable future?
I think yes. If you look at, you have to look at the opposition as well, right? I feel this Astralis lineup could definitely be a potential threat in the near future. Lucky especially was a big surprise for me. I really liked how he was rifling. He seemed to kind of come into his own with the AK, the M4, whatever. Which honestly, I don't think even Astralis was expecting that, right? So yeah, if they continue this trajectory, Astralis could be a real threat. But apart from that, every other team are just big question marks. You look at Vitality with this experiment with the Danes. I don't know how that's going to pan out, right? I'm sure they have, and then you're talking about all these roster changes taking place with some of the NA teams. You even look at the EU. I don't really see a real lineup who could really contest with Navi for that particular crown, at least in the near future. So I feel like, yeah, if Navi are going to lose, I think their worst enemy are going to be themselves. If they get, a little bored of winning, a little complacent. Because I'm looking at the stats here, and in the past 6 events that Navi have played, they've won all 6 of them. This is the 7th one, mind you, except for an IEM Fall, which was that grand finals, which really didn't really matter, right?
It didn't count really, yeah.
It didn't count really, so I'm not really going to read much.
Because they were both qualified for the major. People don't
exactly right. So they won Cologne, they won Pro League, they won the Starlight CIS RMR. They came, first and third for the fall groups. Sure, they lost to Gambit in the IEM Fall, won the major. Here we go, another potential win coming up here, right? So this is just almost incredible. Like, it's not just the online era. They went from the online era to the LAN, and they look even more scarier on LAN right now. So yes, I don't see the streak ending anytime soon, unless Simple decides, I'm just going to take a break for 6 months. If that happens, sure. But apart from that, at least till I feel like the beginning of the second quarter of next year, I feel Navi just going to be almost unbeatable.
What do you think?
I think Gambit could be the team that contests them. I think that there's Gambit clearly had some problems on LAN. Axile in particular just wasn't playing the way that he does online, and I think he's beginning to gain confidence. Like at the V4 festival, he started playing better, and that was kind of a storyline for me with Gambit when they were playing at the big LAN events. Is that, you know, Hobbit stayed as consistent as he was. Shiro took a little bit to get going, I'd say, this year on LAN, but like he found his form now, and then Axile was kind of the missing piece for me to make them really competitive versus Navi. So I will say that I think Gambit has the best chance of doing it, and it will be probably a combination of Navi's complacency in some specific tournament and the fact that Gambit is going to finally find themselves on the big stage and know how to deal with that pressure. So that's I think that's probably my best bet. If you had to like make me bet on somebody to beat them, it would be Gambit within 3 months before anybody else. So that seems like that still seems kind of like distant though, because of how badly Navi battered them. But I think it's just going to be incremental improvements for Gambit as they play more and more on big stages.
I feel for Gambit that there are two main steps, right? We know they're really good online. We know that they are pretty decent on LAN. When I say LAN, I'm talking like studio events, right? When you're playing the group stages and whatnot. And in the arena, like you said, Maui, like they got completely battered in front of the crowd. So I feel like they need to first get to the level where they are able to take down Navi, you know, not convincingly. I don't think they're ever going to beat Navi convincingly in the near future, but at least they're able to get these wins over Navi in a studio stage and then go to the arena stage altogether. Because I was really disappointed with the way they fared in that in the major. So yes, I have to agree with you. I think they're the only team right now who could get that win. But for me, with LANs coming back, it is going to be the arena events. And I still feel when it comes to that, like if they're going to be playing Katowice in front of that crowd, or maybe a Cologne for that matter, I still feel like they need a little bit of growing up to do. And then again, it comes down to them being a little bit more convincing when it comes to some of the group stages or some of those studio events, so to speak.
I think the major, unfortunately, made it like look too extreme, because there's another thing. When I make that competitive ladder analogy, like just playing an arena one is below playing an arena that's the major as well. Like that was the semi-finals of a major and in a massive arena with a crowd. Like the key thing is, because Gambit's good enough, they're at least going to be in the mix in a bunch of these studio and LAN events with stadiums, quite frankly. And so they're going to get the experience is the key thing for me. So there's enough quality in the team. I think, listen, I wouldn't say next LAN. I would say maybe in like a month, 2 months. That's when, in theory, they should have played 3 or 4 LANs. They'll have bedded in. They might even have taken some more losses, by the way. Sometimes the losses help you get more comfortable. You don't have fear of it anymore. You know what it's like to lose in that situation. The other team, which as much as it sounds cursed to say it now, is obviously Heroic, just because look, when they play, they do match up pretty well. The Heroic's problem is they also have some inexperience. So their issue is, like at this tournament, they can't bloody get back to play against Navi yet. Like they've had some moments themselves where they've sort of faltered under the big lights. So I'd say that's a potential. But yeah, obviously Navi's the big team overall. Like the one problem I have going forwards is this. Like I have a famous scenario that sadly I have to tell as a shit anecdote, and you can just disbelieve me if you want, because sadly the person who did this interview with me is so fucking incompetent they were unable to manage the technology. The interview was never published. It was just an audio interview and they fucked up like press and record or something. But basically when FaZe Clan won that ESL New York back in 2017, where they just dusted everyone off, they wrecked Liquid in the final. It was the one where Nico like made like a record or something for his rating at the tournament, and they were winning like every pistol round, and everyone basically on FaZe Clan was just fragging their mind out. And so as a result, it made it look like, well, fuck, it's over. This is going to be the best team for a year now. I actually did say in an interview after they won the event, like, I'm going to actually say that doesn't happen. I'd say actually like this is a one-off, and basically a couple of players come back down to earth, cool off. And the reason I said was because I said we've just never seen that in counter. We've never really seen a team where like 4 people or 3 people constantly every game just frag out like to absurd levels. And I said if that happens, look, I'll be the first to admit I need to like reevaluate what I think Counter-Strike is. The difference is, I'll say it right now, I think Navi might be the first team that ever does it, dude. Like, because basically I've been saying the whole time, like, I'm waiting for Bit to drop off. It just doesn't happen. And if I actually watch with the eye test, it's not like he's doing unusual stuff. He's playing within his game all the time. Like, I already know Simple and Electronic can keep doing this. Like, I don't see why they couldn't continue at this point in time, especially because then, actually, like I say, here's the difference. difference. In a team like FaZe Clan, you didn't necessarily have a player like Perfecto you knew would close all these rounds out. If you add that into the equation as well, this team can run for a long time with this strength. And let's be real, if you think about the advantages we've built up here, even if some of them go away, they'll still be the best team. They just won't be the best team by a country mile, will they? So I personally think like this is a rare time where you can almost say like just book it. Like they might lose a tournament, they might lose a match, but this looks like one of these squads where like it's going to be so hard to ever beat them before a semi-final. Like you're gonna have to have some absurd bracket for them to not like be in with like a medal position or something, you know.
Yeah, like even when you look at this comparison between that FaZe Clan, right, with Nico, remember this is pre the pre-Astralis era, where they just like completely redefine how Counter-Strike is going to be played. So this Navi team is not just about a firepower. Like Blade knows exactly what he's doing, their game plan, the T-sides, everything is almost as close to perfection as can find right now in modern day CS. So I'm going to even go out on a limb and say that this is, we are literally witnessing the Navi era as it is happening in front of our eyes. And we are going to be calling this like the next, at least till mid to late 2022, that it is going to be the Navi era. I really don't see them dropping off anytime soon. And even if a player drops off, like we've been talking about, there's so many pillars on the team who can carry the load. And I don't see anyone just going to disappear. I don't see the performances coming in from someone like Bit. At this point, we have to hand it to the guy. The guy is consistent as fuck, which is insane considering it's his first year as well. So yeah, it has to be, we are in the middle of the Navi era right now.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.